Right, welcome back. Let's continue with more news. We're in the month of September. South Africa observes the National Albinism Awareness Month, where the month is dedicated to persons with albinism to showcase their pride and challenges, amongst others. Now, the 2023 International Albinism Day theme is inclusion is strength. So a theme that calls for the inclusion of the voices of persons with albinism in all sectors of life. The Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities partners with the National Albinism Task Force today to host a webinar to empower the young generation. So for more on this, we're going to be joined via Teams by Advocate Joyce Maluleke, Director General for the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Advocate Joyce, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the listeners also. And thank you for having me here.
No, absolutely. Let's jump straight into it. The theme. Let's talk to the 2023 theme of inclusion as strength.
Yes, I think persons with albinism have been excluded. I know also from when I was young, normally you wouldn't see them at schools, or you wouldn't see them in many places because they felt excluded. You know, there are sometimes it's attitude, sometimes it's
It's also the narratives associated and stereotypes
and narratives that exist on them, where people believe that if you walk where the person with albinism walked, then you will. It's as if it's catchy. And then if you sit where they were sitting, also you will be infected with it. Where also people believe that people with albinism, they will give you luck. So sometimes those people were trafficked for ritual purposes and different things. So with regards to that, then they end up being excluded. And not being able to go to schools, not being able to play with other children, because even children grow up believing, other children will grow up believing that you can't play with them, because if you play with them, either it will catch you or whatever. And also when they are walking, sometimes when you see them, some people believe that when you see them, you must spit saliva on the ground so that whatever their sickness or whatever that you think shouldn't catch you.
Well, speaking about changing attitudes and narratives, perhaps you could talk to how we begin to put the person first. How do we break those stereotypes and even the myths surrounding people living with albinism?
Yes, I just want to explain first that in South Africa, albinism is regarded as a disability because it's a skin condition that is permanent. That's how they are, or it is defined as a disability. But a person with disabilities is a human being like myself and yourself, first and foremost. So the disability is something that is just an additional over that person being a person. So we all have the same rights. We all have the same capabilities. Sometimes if the person, maybe sometimes they are on the wheelchair, that would be the only disability that they have, that they can't walk. But otherwise, in terms of thinking and anything else, they are as capable as everyone else, and sometimes even more capable than myself or yourself. So it's important for us to understand that everyone is capable as we are. It's just that they have a condition that then disadvantages them from what we can do sometimes. Like walk or see or speak.
I think it's very important then that we also protect their human rights. And I wonder if you could then speak to the safety and security measures of people with albinism, perhaps even their families. What strides have also been taken on that front?
The challenge is one of the things that was being discussed today at the dialogue, which was held today, is to share, to provide young persons with albinism an opportunity to share the challenges that they experience at school, in communities, at work, whether they get jobs or not, and all those things. One of the biggest challenges that they experience is being trafficked. They are being trafficked across the borders, because there are countries, I won't mention the countries here now, but there are countries where children with albinism do not survive in those countries because they are killed for rituals and all those things. So in South Africa, there are two provinces which were known for trafficking these children with albinism: Mpumalanga and Northern KwaZulu-Natal. You remember even the story last year of a grave that was desecrated because they wanted body parts of a deceased person with albinism. So the justice, crime prevention and security cluster in South Africa then prioritized albinism, crime against persons with albinism, and they established a strategy to address that. So in South Africa, that is reducing. Even in Mpumalanga, we no longer have trafficking of persons with albinism. And the courts, they are serious in convicting people who are accused of either killing or assaulting or treating person with albinism in any other way.
Advocate Joyce, thank you for those sentiments. Perhaps in view of the dialogue that's also happening, what is some of the psychosocial support on offer, given the discrimination that you've alluded to? Some instances in some countries on the continent where people with albinism face mutilation, the impact of the criminal justice system in supporting them as well. What's being observed on that front?
Different countries. In different countries, there are different criminal justice system responses. But in most countries, they are really strengthening their systems to be able to respond to that. But on psychosocial, because I want to focus on South Africa. In South Africa, because most of the time they would have suffered at school, the Department of Basic Education has put mechanisms in order to be able to respond or to support children with albinism. Also, when they're at school, there are support systems that they need. For example, most of them have got challenges in terms of, you find that they have eyesight problems, or their hair fall, or their skin has got problems. So they support them in that regard. But even those that are not at school, the Department of Health has a health care program for persons with albinism, but also the Department of Higher Education and Training also has policies that responds to persons with disabilities. And one of the policies is a policy on young persons with albinism who are at tertiary education. So they are supported.
Advocate Joyce Maluleke, Director General for the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. Thank you for your time with us on the SABC and for those sentiments as we shine a spotlight on the month of September, which concludes today in South Africa, observing the National Albinism Awareness Month that obviously was observed during September. Again, thank you to her for her time with us here on the SABC. There's also a dialogue that is taking place. That theme, looking at the inclusion, is strength and really how to move forward as a country united.